Okay, gonna start this one out with a little PSA about the anime app Funimation. When it comes to Funimation, to put things simply, I would just say Funimation. It's a piece of shit that I can't for any second of the I can't stand that app. I swear it's designed to piss me off because it's a I used up my ad-free trial when I watched the show Gantz. So I decided to watch Gungrave on the Crunchyroll app. Grabbed me a 15-day free trial and oops, Gungrave is not on Crunchyroll for some reason. Crunchyroll? What's going on, man? So we go back to Funimation with ads because I'm too fucking stubborn to pay $8 for an entire month when I only need to watch 9 hours of content. And from watching Gantz, I was already aware that Funimation is a pain in the ass. So I just couldn't bring myself to spend the $8 that would have relieved how much time of ads? A millennia? So I started Gungrave on Funimation, and sure enough, it was a goddamn nightmare. The amount of ads that they just squeeze into one ad break, it's up to 6. And halfway through that, the app glitches out. So you have to close out the app and reopen it just to get another 6 ads. And it's just this cycle of torture. It takes over an hour to watch one 22-minute episode. So luckily, halfway through the show, it popped up on YouTube and I was able to watch the rest of Gungrave via YouTube. Whoever the wonderful person that uploaded the show on YouTube was, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Gungrave. I'm gonna have to do spoilers here because there are specific cool things that I'd like to talk about. For sure though, even if you know what happens, you're still gonna have a good time watching this show, alright? Episode 1 of Gungrave opens up in the near future. Kinda wish they didn't take this route. They chose to take away from the mystery and shock factor of what happens later on, just to grab your attention right away in the beginning. So, I understand that move, but I think it would have paid off better later on. So the show opens up with this huge guy in this ridiculous outfit, including a cowboy hat. He busts out these enormous guns, shooting up these zombie vampire looking dudes. And you're watching this thing like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm very interested. They saw my attention and then they captured it. So then episode 2, we rewind like 25 years. This then begins our story of Brandon Heat and his best friend Harry. They're just a couple of young guys that commit small crimes to survive. The next 10 years or so of the story, these two are getting recruited into this mob organization called Millennium. These dudes are working for the mob, climbing up the ranks and making friends along the way. What I really like about this chunk of the series are the risks, the rewards, and the consequences. You see Harry and Brandon Heat risking their lives for this organization. They get noticed by the upper ranks and you see them advance into their own roles. Brandon Heat, he becomes a high-ranking hitman, also known as a sweeper. Harry becomes a smart, strategic made man, bringing in tons of money with his schemes and his con jobs. Harry makes a bunch of connections with guys that he could have killed, but instead he makes these men loyal to him, building blocks for the future. Both men over this time become completely loyal to Millennium. Brandon Heat becomes so loyal that he actually doesn't go after his longtime crush Maria. She ends up with the head of Millennium, the guy all the way at the top. And his name is Big Daddy. Yeah, Big Daddy. Him and Maria end up together. And you think it's gonna be weird, but the show makes it not so weird. It's surprisingly genuine. Big Daddy also takes a liking to Brandon Heat after Brandon Heat saves his life. They become friends. Fishing buddies even. This also establishes Brandon Heat's loyalty to Millennium. So anyway, we see these dudes working their way up the ranks, and you do have an idea of what's gonna happen. You're like, yeah, I've seen Harry doing these building blocks and building relationships. When exactly is Harry gonna try to take over Millennium? It's been like 10 years and he still hasn't tried to make a move to take over. What's he waiting for? And just when you're starting to think this, they introduced the sci-fi element into the show. Some random scientist was able to bring dead bodies back to life that follow orders. And they're also very hard to kill. And they're huge. This is the point when Harry starts lining up his dominoes to take over. Right when you start to think, you know what, Harry's a pretty good guy. I don't think he's gonna take over. Then he does. And you know what, it's pretty glorious. So at this point, or even like just before, Brandon Heat and Harry are completely loyal to each other. They're best friends. They've been best friends since childhood. They're completely loyal to Millennium. This is when we get the elevator scene. We got both dudes going into an elevator, going up to the top, symbolism. Brandon Heat is the most lethal man in the organization. He's a living weapon. Then you got Harry, who's arguably the smartest guy in the organization. You got the muscle and the brains going up in the elevator. They've escalated their ranks within this organization together. Then Harry tells Brandon Heat that it's time to take over, and he wants to kill Big Daddy. These words go against the Code of Iron, which is like a Millennium thing. Harry is saying something traitorous to the organization to Brandon Heat. So Brandon Heat pulls his gun on Harry because Harry broke the Code of Iron. Traitors gotta die. But then Brandon Heat hesitates because he loves Harry like a brother. They grew up together. They've made it this far together. He can't bring himself to pull the trigger. And in that hesitation, Harry pulls his gun on Brandon Heat and kills him. He shoots him like 7 times. Obviously, this is an outside elevator, so Brandon falls backward through the glass, descending within his downfall. Harry just killed his best friend, and to make his way the rest of the way up, he's gonna tell everyone else that Brandon Heat was a traitor. This elevator scene is just one of those scenes that is perfect. It's a perfect scene. The animation's perfect, the dialogue's perfect, the way they act is perfect. It's great. The dude that recommended the show to me recommended this show specifically for that scene, and I loved it. You got your symbolism, it's poetic, it's just awesome. Brandon Heat chose his friend over the organization that he dedicated his life to. Harry chose his selfish ambition and killed his best friend. That is some Shakespearean berserk shit right there, and it happens in one scene, and just that scene is epic. And it happens to be the turning point of this anime. Now shit goes off the rails. Using these men that Harry has made loyal to him, he takes over Millennium. He kills Big Daddy. And then he has an army of these zombie monsters created. Now we get a 14-year time jump. Brings us back to that first episode, huh? We find out that the scientist that figured out how to make these zombie monsters, he feels awful about it. So what does he do? He makes one special zombie monster guy to right the wrongs that he has made and take down this organization that his monsters helped to build. And if you haven't guessed it yet, the body he used to create this new improved zombie monster, well, that's the body of Brandon fucking Heat. But this scientist was never interested in Brandon Heat's life. He doesn't give a shit. Zombie Brandon Heat, he needs a new name. Since he's been brought back from the dead, his new name is
Beyond the Grave.
This anime is based off of a video game, I guess. So now this show is a bunch of boss battles against Brandon Heat's former friends in Millennium, as he systematically takes them out one by one to take them all down. And yeah, every single one of these former friends has some kind of scientific manipulation so they can do all these cool things and stab and blow up and do all this shit, because why the fuck not? You get all these awesome, ridiculous shootout battles, and it's sweet. And all of this work and effort leads to Harry at the end of the road. All of this builds up to Harry's downfall. So you got Brandon Heat beyond the grave taking down the strength of the organization, while the other leaders of Millennium decide to take down Harry from within the organization. They're just gonna take everything that he built and chop it out from under him. As Harry is losing everything that he built, his path leads to Brandon, the final showdown. And it's not a giant shootout between Brandon and Harry. It's a conversation that Brandon and Harry are having while Millennium is trying to take both of them down. It all leads to the building that these two dudes started everything together in when they were young, 25 years ago. So while they're hashing their shit out, Millennium's just wreaking havoc upon them, and they're holding their own. We just get another fantastic scene showing the relationship between these two dudes. Once again, Brandon Heat beyond the grave is given a chance to kill Harry, and again, he can't do it. Even after all this shit has happened and all the people Harry's killed, he can't kill his best buddy, and this leads to Harry completely breaking down and confessing everything to Brandon. Harry got everything he ever wanted, but he never felt fulfilled because he couldn't enjoy the rise to the top without his best buddy. It's just kind of this beautiful conversation while this shootout is just going crazy. I'm not going to tell you how the show ends. If you want to watch it, I've left out enough details for you to fully enjoy it on your own. Gungrave is kind of ridiculous, but hey, it's a take on a mob story that I've never seen before. It can get ridiculous, and sometimes it's very annoying, but the core story is great. One of the main characters of this story that I just didn't mention was Big Daddy and Maria's child, Mika. She's the character that kind of brings everything together after the 14-year time jump. You got zombie Brandon Heat that has nothing to live for, so he chooses to live to protect her. Personally, I'm not a fan of this character. I think just in general, I find 14-year-olds particularly annoying. Just the way that she says Brandon is so hard to listen to. I don't know how the sub version is, but the dub is painful to my ears. However, she still has her good moments, especially with Brandon Heat's character. She reminds him of her mother, who he used to love, who he let go just to be betrayed in the end. She is a symbol of what could have been. It's funny to think that this scientist took Brandon Heat's dead body and turned it into this giant killing machine and chose to just dress him like a futuristic cowboy. He's like, yep, this looks great. Time to send him off on his redemption arc. The animation is very for the non-action scenes, but when action starts happening, the animation is awesome. You could tell that with their budget, they had to cut some corners with the animation. The sound editing across the board is on par. And in case you were wondering, yes, I'm a big fan of the opening soundtrack. The anime nerds call it, what? An OST? Yeah, I love the OST. It's very chill. Here's a fun fact. Most of the cast for this dub is the Cowboy Bebop cast. You're welcome. As long as you're not using Funimation, Gungrave is very easy to get through. It's really good at keeping you in the moment. I was invested from episode to episode, and I wasn't really worried about what was going to happen next. I just loved watching these two street thugs rise up to the top of this mob organization. I love the eventual betrayal. I love this weird sci-fi twist that turns into a slaughterhouse, leaving Harry with nothing. It's this cool, weird story with some awesome characters. For the most part. Yes, you should watch it. It's only 26 episodes. Just don't watch it on Funimation. Go find it on YouTube and enjoy, okay? See ya! Subscribe! The names in this show are either the fucking worst or the absolute best. You tell me. Blood War, Big Daddy, Brandon Heat, Beyond the Grave, Bloody Harry, and of course, the fat guy's name is Bob Poundmax.